Hey, this is X-Cult Baby, and this week I am going to be talking about my experiences with alternative medicine and to some degree its connection with certain types of religion. But before I get into that, I want to show you guys something so cool. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you wouldn't have seen this already, but one of my patrons actually sent me some really awesome art in the mail, and I'm probably not going to have that happen again because I used my actual address because I don't have a P.O. box. So, if you want to send me stuff, don't ask, because I only did that once, and it was probably not it's not a great idea to give out your real address when you're a person who's on the internet. So I'm probably not going to do that again until I get a P.O. box. But anyways, this is what she sent me. This piece was for Pride. It's in the pansexual Pride flag colors. Awesome. And this one was just for funsies. I don't know if there's a specific way it's supposed to be. I like it better this way. I haven't found a place to hang them up on the wall yet, but I will. I'm going to find a place for them. I really love them. They're awesome. Thank you so much to my patron, Red is Crazy, and on Twitter it's savage_minnow. I think it's the same on Instagram, I think. But yeah, you're awesome. Thank you so much for those. I really love them, and I am a complete procrastinator, so the fact that I haven't hung them up yet is not a slight against your art at all. Whew. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's actually get into the topic. So, not every fundamentalist Christian gets into alternative medicine, obviously, but it's common enough that there's got to be some sort of correlation here, right? I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. Both of my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad, although he is, just as indoctrinated as the next Jehovah's Witness, has always been fairly skeptical and logical. So he really doesn't get into the alternative medicine stuff himself. My mother, on the other hand, is an anti-vaxxer who uses essential oils and receives regular treatments from my grandmother. My grandmother is a practitioner of a particularly interesting branch of alternative medicine called health kinesiology, which I will get back to. Now, neither of my parents are complete science deniers. They're not flat earthers, they're not young earth creationists or climate change deniers or anything like that. But when your religion teaches you that the whole world is being run by Satan and that there's some kind of evolution conspiracy being pushed on people by the monolithic institution of science, because, individual scientists just agree for no reason and not because it's evidence-backed, I guess, just to, keep God out of the picture. Yeah, when you believe all that, it definitely leads to a science denial mindset. If you don't believe that the foundations of biology that are taught in scientific textbooks are true, then why would you believe that a doctor really knows anything at all about the human body? If you're already denying a scientific theory that's well backed by evidence solely because it doesn't fit a literal interpretation of your holy book, then yeah, what can't you deny that's backed by science? So, on that basis, I think it's fairly safe to say there's probably some kind of link between creationism and alternative medicine. I also had a talk with someone who was not from the US, and they kind of floated the theory that maybe our shitty healthcare system has something to do with the problem. When the healthcare system is failing to help you or failing to offer solutions that won't put you in immense debt, some people are forced to look for alternative solutions. Alternative medicines also usually have foundations in something that sounds like it would be intuitively true, or something that sounds, like pseudo-scientific-ish, so that makes it even easier for a desperate person to swallow that pill. So, all that being said, why am I picking a fight with alternative medicine today? Well, I have a personal bone to pick with alternative medicine. As I mentioned earlier, my grandmother practices something called health kinesiology. There are other versions of kinesiology besides health kinesiology, or HK, but all of them rely on something called muscle testing. Basically, muscle testing involves a kinesiology practitioner pressing on the outstretched arm of a patient while asking a yes or no question out loud. Now, if their arm falls a little bit like this when they press on it, then it's supposed to be a no. But if their arm stays firm, then it's a yes. The practitioner's questions are directed at the body of the patient, so they're literally asking the person's body basically what's wrong with it and how to fix it. And it is just as weird as it sounds. But it's also pretty convincing, especially to the person it's being performed on, but it's also convincing to the person that's doing it. My grandmother performed this on me and my siblings many times and never charged us a dime, so I know that she believed in the efficacy of it, otherwise she wouldn't be doing it. I went to my grandmother over the years with various symptoms, ranging from physical pain and illness to seeking treatment for my ADHD and depression. And the treatments involved a lot of different things. Sometimes she would ask me to think about or repeat out loud a certain phrase while holding certain points on my body, or while having magnets and essential oils and a bunch of other things, like all at different points on my body, trying to balance my meridian, I guess. And sometimes she would send me home with homework or prescriptions, if you want to call it that. Like, she would send me home with vitamins, supplements, clay for detox baths, essential oils. She would try to tell me to eat more of certain foods or to avoid certain foods for a certain period of time, or to have an exercise regimen of some kind. One time, she actually told me that I had to go home as home treatment, I had to read the Bible for a certain amount of time per day as spiritual treatment, I guess. I guess my body had spiritual needs that I was just totally unaware of. But I think the worst thing of all is the one time she went too far and she gave me an actual medical diagnosis. She told me that I was lactose intolerant. And for years after that, I did my best to avoid dairy, even though up until that point I hadn't noticed any dairy sensitivity at all. And I never really stopped eating cheese, and it wasn't a problem. But I still adamantly told people that I was lactose intolerant, even though I really had no evidence to back that up. Only a few weeks ago, it dawned on me that I had been saying I was lactose intolerant for all these years, and then I remember who diagnosed me, and I realized that I might not be lactose intolerant at all. So I ordered myself a large whole milk cappuccino, and I didn't drink all of it because I didn't need all the coffee, but nothing happened. No bloating, no stomach ache, no gas, no discomfort. Nothing. So, yeah, all this time, I was not lactose intolerant at all. I have been missing out on ice cream for years because of this. Looking back, I was always somewhat skeptical of HK, but I figured that even if the only positive effect that I was getting from it was the placebo effect, then I was getting it for free, so it wasn't like it was doing any harm. The problem with the placebo effect, though, is that you still have to be at least somewhat convinced that the treatment you're receiving is actually doing something. Because if you don't believe it, you don't get the placebo effect. If I had stopped and thought critically about whether or not I was actually lactose intolerant when I hadn't shown any signs of it up until that point, I probably would have just stopped believing in HK altogether, and then, bye-bye placebo effect. Alternative medicine has a lot of capability for harm. And even when you think maybe it isn't that harmless because, maybe it's not draining your wallet, or maybe nothing that you're taking is harmful, or maybe you're not putting off any real necessary medical treatment in replacement of the alternative medicine. Even if all of that's true, you have to believe in something that isn't true to receive any real benefits from it at all. And that in and of itself can be dangerous. Now, maybe you're an apologist, and you could just argue that maybe my grandmother just wasn't a skilled practitioner. Although I would argue against that because I remember her actually traveling out of town to take courses in HK and get, I guess you would call it, certified. And you could argue that maybe she was wrong about me being lactose intolerant, but, she could have been right about other stuff. Well, let's look at the research. In one 1995 study, 7 participants were gathered who were all allergic to wasp venom. And 4 HK practitioners were brought in to test the reliability of the muscle testing method. The researchers had 10 bottles of wasp venom and 10 placebo bottles that were the same weight, size, look. And basically they had the HK practitioners test on the different participants and with all of the different bottles to try to figure out, through the muscle testing method, which ones were placebo and which ones were actually wasp venom. In theory, the practitioners would have been able to figure it out by placing the bottle in a box covered up so they couldn't see it, but they would be able to just place the bottle on one of the allergic participants and they should have gotten a weak response from the muscle testing. Their arm should have gone down when pressed on. That should have been consistently the result. And when it was the placebo, it should have had a strong locked position. That, in theory, is what should have happened if muscle testing actually worked. Of the 4 practitioners tested, only one of them successfully guessed whether or not it was the placebo or the actual wasp venom more than 50% of the time. Everyone else guessed it correctly less than 50% of the time. According to this study's results, the retest reliability of muscle testing isn't much more reliable than a random number generator, which, if you couldn't figure it out, is 0. Of course, obviously this study is a really small sample size, but even so, with the kind of claims that people make about how well HK works, the results should have been much, much better. Only one of the practitioners was an actual beginner. The other 3 had all taken courses and should have been proficient. They'd all been practicing HK and had all taken courses. So they all should have been decent at this, because muscle testing is basically the fundamental basis of the entire practice of health kinesiology. So if you don't have that down, then you shouldn't be able to pass any kind of HK test. You shouldn't be able to practice at all. One of the participants had actually taken several advanced courses and had been practicing HK for over 8 years. Like I said, if there's anything at all to this HK business, the results should have been much, much better. By the way, if you do want to see this study yourself, I will link it in the description. So, in conclusion, don't trust new agey alternative medicine quacks. Even if they're completely well-intentioned, do some research on their methodology, and I can all but guarantee that the research shows it doesn't work. Probably. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, leave a comment, and most importantly, share it with a Facebook mom who keeps trying to sell you essential oils. Maybe this video will inspire her to, look at more scholarly studies for medical advice instead of online forums. If you want to keep up with me off of YouTube, follow me on Twitter at xcultbaby or join my brand new Discord server. Please join it. Link is in the description. I would love to hear from you all. And if you'd like to support my work, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. The lowest patron tier is only $1 a month, and you would get special patron access to my Discord server. I'm xcultbaby, reminding you to go for yourself. Thank you for watching. Additional thanks to my amazing patrons. Thank you so much for continuing to support my work.
Ever are we at a crossroads that could ever bring us to our knees?